The message came on a Tuesday morning. Ambassador Yoon Hana was sitting in her office on the Galactic Council station when her screen lit up with an urgent call. The face of High Elder Morvax appeared, his gray skin stretched tight over a skull that had lived for 3,000 years. "Ambassador Yoon," he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes, "the Council has decided to honor humanity with a great responsibility." Hana felt her stomach tighten. In 200 years of membership, humanity had never been honored with anything. They were always the youngest species, the newcomers, the ones who had to prove themselves again and again. "What kind of responsibility?" she asked carefully. "A peacekeeping mission in the Outer Rim territories. Several species there are fighting. We need a strong military presence to restore order. The Council believes Earth's fleet is perfect for this task." Hana wanted to refuse. Something felt wrong. But she knew Earth's government would never allow her to reject such an offer. For 2 centuries, humanity had been trying to gain respect in the galaxy. This seemed like their chance. 3 weeks later, Admiral Park Do-won stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Horizon, and watched Earth grow smaller in the viewing screen. Behind him, 90% of humanity's military ships followed in perfect formation. 200 vessels carrying the best soldiers and sailors humanity had ever produced. "Admiral," said Captain Baek Jisu, his young tactical officer, "I have concerns about this mission." Park turned to look at her. Jisu was only 32 years old, but she had a mind sharper than anyone he had ever met. "Speak freely, Captain." "Why would the Council send our entire fleet to the far edge of the galaxy? It would take us 6 months to return if something happened at home." The Admiral nodded slowly. He had the same worry. But orders were orders, and Earth's government had commanded them to go. "Keep your concerns to yourself for now, Captain, but stay alert." The fleet traveled for 4 months. They passed through territories belonging to species that had ruled the stars for millions of years. Everywhere they went, alien eyes watched them with strange expressions. Some looked curious, others looked almost sad. On the day they finally reached the Outer Rim, everything changed. Admiral Park was eating breakfast when the emergency alarm sounded. He ran to the bridge and found his crew staring at their screens with pale faces. "Report!" he commanded. Captain Baek Jisu turned to him. Her hands were shaking. "Admiral, we have received a transmission from Earth. The Galactic Council has declared humanity a Class 7 threat species. They say we are dangerous and must be eliminated." Park felt the world stop around him. "That is impossible. We have done nothing wrong." "There is more, sir." Jisu's voice cracked. 17 species are sending their fleets to Earth. They will arrive in 6 weeks. And, sir, they have jammed all our communication channels. We cannot warn anyone." The Admiral sat down heavily in his chair. In one moment, everything humanity had built was falling apart. The Council had played them perfectly. They had sent Earth's protection to the other side of the galaxy, and now they would destroy everything humans loved. "Get me any channel that works," Park ordered. "I do not care how you do it. Find a way to contact Earth." For 3 days, the communication officers worked without sleep. They tried every frequency, every method, every trick they knew. Finally, a young officer named Kang Hyun-woo found a gap in the jamming signal. It would only last for 30 seconds. Admiral Park stood before the transmission array. He had 30 seconds to warn Earth about the greatest danger humanity had ever faced. He could not explain everything. He could not give them a battle plan. He could only give them the truth. "This is Admiral Park Do-won to Earth Command. The Galactic Council has betrayed us. Everything was a lie. They sent us away so they could destroy our home. They have done this before to other species. 12 civilizations have been erased the same way." He paused, feeling the weight of his words. "They lied. Prepare." The channel closed. The jamming returned. Admiral Park stared at the empty screen and prayed that his message had reached home. Captain Bayek Jasu approached him quietly.
Admiral, I found something in the encrypted Council communications. Records of the other species they destroyed. The Velhari, the Sunborn, the Children of the Deep. All gone. All erased from history because the Council feared them.
Why? Park asked. Why would they do this?
Because those species were growing too strong, too smart, too independent.
Jasu met his eyes. Just like us.
Admiral Park stood and walked to the viewing window.
Somewhere across the galaxy, his home was in danger. His people were about to face an enemy they never expected, and he was too far away to help them. But he knew something the Council did not know. Humanity was not like the other species they had destroyed. Humans did not surrender. Humans did not give up. Humans fought until their last breath, and sometimes they won battles that should have been impossible.
Set a course for Earth, he ordered. Maximum speed.
Sir, at maximum speed. We will still need 6 months to return. Then we will find a way to go faster. Admiral Park turned to face his crew. The Council thinks they have won. They think humanity will die quietly like the others. They are wrong. We are going home, and we are going to show them what happens when you betray the human race. The fleet turned toward Earth. The journey would be long and desperate. But in the hearts of every human on those ships, a fire was burning. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake, and humanity was going to make them pay for it. The message from Admiral Park arrived on Earth like a bomb. Within hours, the entire planet knew the truth. The Galactic Council, the organization humanity had trusted and served for 200 years, had betrayed them. An armada of 3,000 alien ships was coming to destroy everything. President Oh Jun-soo sat in the emergency bunker beneath Seoul and looked at the faces around him. Generals, scientists, politicians, all of them waiting for him to speak. Outside, the world was falling into chaos. People were crying in the streets. Some were praying. Others were saying goodbye to their families. "How many ships do we have?" the president asked. General Shin Tae-woo, Supreme Commander of Earth's remaining forces, stepped forward. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and scars from battles fought on distant planets. In his entire career, he had never lost a fight, but he had also never faced odds like this. 47 ships, Mr. President, against 3,000. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. It was not a battle, it was an execution. "What are our options?" President O asked. A younger general spoke up. "We could surrender. The Council might show mercy if we give up without fighting." "They will not show mercy," said a woman's voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look at Dr. Kwon Minji, chief scientist of Earth's most secret research program. She was small and thin, with glasses that made her eyes look too large for her face. But when she spoke, people listened. "I have studied the Council's history," she continued. "They have destroyed 12 species before us. Every single one tried to surrender. Every single one was killed anyway. The Council does not want peace. They want us gone." President O leaned forward. "Then what do you suggest, Dr. Kwon?" Minji smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "I suggest we show them what we have been hiding." She pressed a button, and the screens around the room lit up with images of weapons, ships, and technologies that no one outside her department had ever seen. For 200 years, we have shown the Council only what we wanted them to see. They think we are primitive. They think our technology is weak. They are wrong. She pointed to a massive weapon on the screen. "This is a gravity cannon. It can crush an enemy ship like paper. And this," she showed a small device, "is a quantum torpedo. It makes shields useless. We have thousands of them." General Shin Tae-woo stared at the screens with wide eyes. "How is this possible? How did we hide this from the Council?" Because they never looked, Minji replied. They were so certain we were inferior that they never imagined we could be a threat. They made a mistake. We are human. We prepare for the worst, even when we hope for the best. President O stood up slowly. For a long moment, he said nothing. The weight of history pressed down on his shoulders. He was about to make a decision that would decide the fate of his entire species. If we fight, he said quietly, we might still lose. All of us might die. Yes, Dr. Kwan agreed. But if we surrender, we definitely die. At least this way we have a chance. The president nodded. Call a vote. Every leader of every nation. I want unanimous agreement before we commit to war. The vote took only 1 hour. Every nation, every government, every people on Earth chose the same answer. They would fight. They would not surrender. They would not beg. They would stand together as humanity had always stood when facing extinction. The next day, President Oh Junsu stood before the transmission array. The council's deadline was approaching. They expected Earth to send a message of surrender, full of pleading and promises. The entire galaxy was watching, waiting to see humanity break. Ambassador Yoon Hana stood beside the president. She had escaped the council station just before they tried to arrest her. Now she was home, ready to speak for her people one last time. What should we say? The president asked her. Hana thought about the council's arrogance. She thought about how they had smiled while planning to murder billions of innocent people. She thought about the 12 species that had been erased from history, their voices silenced forever. Say nothing, she replied. Let me handle this. She stepped forward to the microphone. Her voice was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, to every species that had ever lived under the Council's rule. This is Ambassador Yoon Hana, speaking for the United Earth government. You have asked us to surrender. You have given us 72 hours to beg for mercy. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was cold as ice. Our answer is one word. She looked directly into the camera, directly into the eyes of every alien who thought humanity would break. Come. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, 3,000 ships began their journey toward Earth. Their commanders laughed at human foolishness. Their soldiers prepared for easy victory. They had destroyed 12 species before. This would be no different. But on Earth, something else was happening. Hidden factories that had been sleeping for decades came alive. Weapons that no one knew existed were loaded onto ships. Soldiers who had trained in secret put on armor that made them nearly impossible to kill. Humanity had shown the galaxy only weakness for 200 years. Now, finally, they were about to show their true strength. The Council had asked them to surrender. They had said no. And soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn what that single word really meant. The countdown to battle had begun. High Arbiter Vexillum stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, and watched the human solar system grow larger on his viewing screen. He was 800 years old, and in all that time he had never lost a battle. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed civilizations, and brought entire species to their knees. This mission would be his easiest yet. Report, he commanded in his deep, rumbling voice. 3,000 ships in formation, High Arbiter. The human fleet is 47 vessels. They have positioned themselves near the 4th planet. Vexillum made a sound that might have been laughter. 47 ships. The humans were even more foolish than he had thought. They should have surrendered when they had the chance. Now they would die, and their world would burn. Move the fleet forward. Standard attack formation. This will be over by nightfall. The armada advanced like a wave of death, thousands of warships bristling with weapons that had destroyed civilizations for 1,000,000 years. At the front, the Council's most powerful vessels led the charge. Behind them,
Transport ships carried soldiers ready to land on Earth and finish any survivors. But Vexillum did not know about Commander No Yunji. She was waiting in the darkness of space, hidden behind a small moon with 12 ships that did not appear on any scanner. Her vessels were painted black and carried no lights. They were ghosts, invisible to everything the Council had. "Commander," whispered her first officer, Lieutenant Kang Hyunwoo, "the enemy fleet has passed us. They do not know we are here." Yunji smiled. She was 40 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much war. The Council thought humans were primitive. They were about to learn a painful lesson. "Load the quantum torpedoes," she ordered. "Target their command ships. On my signal, we end their confidence." Meanwhile, General Shin Tai-woo watched the approaching armada from his command center on Mars. His 47 ships floated in formation, looking small and helpless against the enemy's overwhelming numbers. The Council officers were probably laughing at them right now. Good. Let them laugh. "All ships, begin retreat toward Earth," he ordered calmly. His fleet turned and flew backward, appearing to run away in fear. The Council armada followed eagerly, hungry for the kill. They did not notice that the human ships were leading them into a specific area of space. They did not see the thousands of hidden weapons platforms floating among the asteroids. When the Council fleet reached the center of the kill zone, General Shin spoke one word. "Now." Everything happened at once. Commander No Yunji's ghost ships fired from behind, their quantum torpedoes passing through enemy shields like they did not exist. Explosions bloomed across the back of the Council formation as 40 command ships died in seconds. At the same time, the hidden weapons platforms came alive. Gravity cannons fired beams of pure force that crushed enemy vessels into balls of twisted metal. Swarm missiles launched by the millions, each one controlled by an artificial mind that made them impossible to dodge. High Arbiter Vexillum stumbled as his ship shook from a nearby explosion. Warning lights flashed across every screen. Officers shouted reports of damage, casualties, ships dying throughout the fleet. "What is happening?" he roared. "Where is this attack coming from?" "Everywhere, High Arbiter. They have weapons everywhere. Our shields are failing. Our sensors cannot track their missiles." Vexillum stared at his tactical display in horror. 400 ships had been destroyed in the first 5 minutes. 400 against a species he had thought was primitive and weak. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." But it was not impossible. It was human. General Shin Tae-woo watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. His ships had turned around and were now attacking the confused enemy fleet. Human soldiers in powered armor launched themselves through space, landing on enemy vessels and cutting through their hulls. They were faster, stronger, and better armed than anything the Council had ever faced. On the enemy flagship, alarms screamed as human soldiers breached the lower decks. Vexillum could hear gunfire getting closer. He had never experienced this feeling before. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. "All ships, retreat!" he screamed. "Fall back! Fall back!" The Council armada tried to run, but Commander No Yunji's ghost ships blocked their escape route. More quantum torpedoes flew. More gravity cannons fired. More Council vessels died. By the time the survivors managed to flee to safe distance, they had lost 400 ships. The humans had lost 3. General Shin Tae-woo looked at the battlefield scattered with burning wreckage and smiled. This was only the beginning. The Council still had over 2,000 ships. The war was far from over. But something had changed. The Council had expected easy victory. They had expected humans to die quickly and quietly like the 12 species before them. Instead, they had received the worst defeat in their history. Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle recordings with amazement. Humans, the youngest and weakest members of the council, had humiliated the greatest military force in existence. Whispers began to spread. Questions began to be asked. If humans could fight like this, what else had they been hiding? And if the council had lied about human weakness, what else had they lied about? The galaxy was beginning to wake up, and High Arbiter Vexillum, floating in his damaged flagship, realized that this war might not end the way the council had planned. The humans had said come, and now the council understood what that word truly meant. 6 months away from Earth, Admiral Park Do-won could not sleep. Every night he lay in his bed and thought about home. Was it still there? Were his people still alive? The silence from Earth was killing him slowly. His fleet of 200 ships pushed their engines as hard as possible, but physics was cruel. Even at maximum speed, they would need 5 more months to reach Earth. By then, the war might already be over. By then, everyone he loved might be dead. "Admiral," said Captain Baek Jisoo, entering his quarters, "we have received a fragment of a transmission. It bounced off a communication satellite 3 weeks ago." Park sat up immediately. "What does it say?" Jisoo's face showed something he had not seen in weeks. Hope. "Earth is fighting back, sir. They won the first battle. 400 enemy ships destroyed." The Admiral felt tears forming in his eyes. His people were alive. They were fighting. But he also knew the truth. One victory was not enough. The Council still had thousands of ships. Earth needed reinforcements. "How long until we reach home at current speed?" 5 months and 12 days, sir." Too long. Far too long. Admiral Park called a meeting of all his senior officers. They gathered in the conference room of the Horizon, men and women who had served with him for decades. He looked at their tired faces and knew he was about to ask them to do something impossible. "Our people are fighting for survival," he told them. "Every day we delay is another day they might lose. I need ideas. I need ways to get home faster." Silence filled the room. Everyone knew the limits of their ships. There was no way to go faster than maximum speed. The laws of physics did not allow it. Then Chief Engineer Moon Sun-woo stood up. He was a thin man with messy hair and oil stains on his uniform. Most people thought he was strange. Admiral Park knew he was a genius. "There might be a way," Sun-woo said quietly, "but it is very dangerous." "Explain." The engineer walked to the display screen and showed a complex diagram. "Our ships use jump drives for faster-than-light travel. Normally, each ship jumps alone. But if we connect all 200 ships together and combine their jump drives, we could create one massive jump that covers much more distance." Captain Baek Jisoo frowned. "Has this ever been done before?" "No. The math says it should work. But the math also says that if anything goes wrong, all 200 ships will be destroyed instantly. We will not even have time to realize we are dying." The room fell silent. 200 ships, 50,000 sailors. One mistake would kill them all. Admiral Park thought about the risk. He thought about his duty to keep his people safe. Then he thought about Earth, about the billions of humans waiting for help that might never come. "If we succeed," he asked slowly, "how long until we reach Earth?" 3 weeks, maybe less. 3 weeks instead of 5 months. It was worth any risk. But Admiral Park was not a dictator. He would not force his people to die for his decision. "I want every ship to vote," he announced. "Every crew member decides for themselves. If even one ship chooses not to participate, we will continue at normal speed." The vote took 6 hours. Every sailor on every ship had to make a choice: risk death for a chance to save Earth, or play it safe and probably arrive too late. When the results came in, Admiral Park had to read them twice. Every single ship had voted yes. Every single crew member had chosen to risk everything. Not one person had said no.
Captain Baek Jisoo stood beside him as he reviewed the results. "Are you surprised, Admiral?" "No," he said softly. "I am proud." The fleet spent 2 days preparing for the jump. Engineers connected the ships with energy cables. Navigators calculated the exact coordinates. Pilots practiced the maneuvers they would need to perform. On the morning of the jump, Admiral Park addressed his entire fleet. "Today, we do something that has never been done. We will either make history or become history. But whatever happens, know this. We are human. Our ancestors crossed oceans in wooden boats. They walked on the moon with technology weaker than a modern phone. They faced every impossible challenge and won. We are their children. Impossible is just another word for not yet done." He paused and looked at the stars around him. "Our people are waiting. Our families are fighting. Let us go home." The countdown began. Every sailor held their breath. Every engineer watched their screens. The jump drives began to charge, building power that no one had ever tried to control. 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 3, 2, 1. The fleet disappeared from normal space. For 17 seconds, 200 ships existed between dimensions, between reality and nothing. The energy levels were beyond anything human technology had ever produced. One tiny error would collapse everything into oblivion. 17 seconds felt like 17 years. Then suddenly, violently, the fleet burst back into normal space. Alarms screamed, systems overloaded. Sailors fell to the floor as ships shook like toys in a storm. When the chaos settled, Admiral Park looked at his navigation screen. His heart stopped. "Admiral," said Captain Baek Jisoo, her voice shaking with emotion, "we did it. We are 3 days from Earth." The impossible had become possible. The fleet had crossed 5 months of space in 17 seconds. They had arrived in time. Admiral Park closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of thanks. Then he opened them and began giving orders. "All ships, prepare for battle. We are going home, and we are bringing the Council's worst nightmare with us." 200 human warships turned toward Earth. 3 days remained until they reached the battle. 3 days until the Council learned that humanity's full strength had finally arrived. The hunters were about to become the hunted. High Arbiter Vexillum looked at Earth through his viewing screen and felt hatred burning in his chest. For 3 weeks, his fleet had been stuck in a stalemate. Every time they attacked, the humans pushed them back. Every strategy failed. Every assault cost more ships than he could afford. But today would be different. Today, he would end this war with one final desperate move. "All ships," he commanded. "Direct assault on Earth. Ignore their fleet. Ignore their weapons. We break through and burn their planet. Once their home is destroyed, they will have nothing left to fight for." His remaining 2,000 ships formed into a massive wedge and charged straight toward the blue planet. Human defenders fired everything they had, destroying hundreds of Council vessels. But Vexillum did not care about losses anymore. He only cared about victory. The Council fleet pushed through the human defenses. They were getting closer. Earth filled their screens, beautiful and fragile. In a few minutes, it would burn. Then space itself seemed to split open. 200 ships appeared from nowhere, materializing directly behind the Council armada. They were human ships, ships that should have been on the other side of the galaxy, ships that could not possibly be here. Admiral Park Do-won's voice filled every communication channel. "Surprise!" The Third Fleet opened fire. Quantum torpedoes slammed into the back of the Council formation. Gravity cannons crushed ships that had been focused entirely on Earth. In seconds, the careful wedge formation collapsed into chaos. Caught between 2 human forces, the Council fleet had nowhere to run. Admiral Park attacked from behind while General Shin Tae-woo attacked from the front. Enemy ships exploded in every direction. High Arbiter Vexillum watched his tactical display fill with death. His fleet was being torn apart. Everything he had worked for was falling apart. "No," he whispered. "This cannot happen. We are the Council. We have ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years." But the galaxy was watching, and the galaxy was beginning to understand. Ambassador Yoon Hana had prepared a special transmission. As the battle raged, she broadcast the truth to every corner of the universe. Records of the 12 species the Council had destroyed. Communications showing how they had planned humanity's extinction. Evidence of lies, betrayals, and genocide spanning 50,000 years. Species that had served the Council loyally for generations saw the truth for the first time. The Morvani, the Crystalline Unity, the Star Swimmers, all of them watched in horror as they learned what their masters truly were. "We trusted you," said the Morvani ambassador in a message to the Council. "We believed you were bringing peace to the galaxy. You were only bringing death." Across the universe, species began to turn against the Council. Fleets that had been coming to help destroy Earth stopped and turned around. Governments that had supported the extermination order withdrew their support. The Council's empire, built on lies and fear, began to crack. Back at Earth, the battle was ending. General Shin Tai-woo personally led a team of soldiers in powered armor onto Vexillum's flagship. They cut through the corridors, fighting through alien defenders who had never faced enemies this strong. Shin Tai-woo found Vexillum on the command deck, standing alone as his officers fled. The High Arbiter was tall, ancient, and proud. Even in defeat, he refused to kneel. "You have won nothing," Vexillum said coldly. "Even if you destroy our fleet, the Council of Elders still rules. They will send more ships. They will never stop until your species is erased." General Shin removed his helmet and looked the alien in the eyes. "Then we will keep fighting until they understand. You made a mistake when you attacked us. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We do not forget." He raised his weapon and pointed it at Vexillum's head. "The Council's reign is over. Tell your elders that humanity is coming for them." The Council surrendered the next day. Their fleet was destroyed. Their allies had abandoned them. They had no choice but to accept humanity's terms. Ambassador Yoon Hana wrote those terms herself. The Council would be dissolved forever. All species would be freed from their control. A new organization would be created, the Galactic Assembly, where every civilization had equal voice and equal power. The Council elders begged for mercy. They offered treasure, technology, anything humanity wanted. Yoon Hana refused everything except justice. "You killed 12 species," she told them. "You erased them from history like they never existed. We will not execute you. We will not torture you. But you will spend the rest of your long lives remembering what you did, and the galaxy will never forget your crimes." 1 year later, Admiral Park Do-won stood before a memorial on Earth. It was a simple wall of black stone with names carved into it, not human names. The names of the 12 species the Council had destroyed, the Velhari, the Sunborn, the Children of the Deep. Species that had existed for millions of years before being erased by the Council's fear. Ambassador Yoon Hana joined him, her hair now touched with gray. The past year had been hard. Building a new galactic government was exhausting work, but it was worth it. "They asked me why we did not surrender," she said quietly. "Why we said come instead of pleading for mercy." Admiral Park touched the wall gently, feeling the carved letters under his fingers. "Because someone had to remember them," he replied. "Someone had to make sure it never happens again." Hana nodded. "The new assembly passed a resolution yesterday. Every member species will teach their children about the 12. They will never be forgotten again." Park smiled, but his eyes were sad. "Good. That is good." They stood together in silence as the sun set behind them. The sky turned orange and red, painting the memorial in colors of fire. Somewhere in the galaxy, the new assembly was meeting for the first time. Species that had been enemies were learning to be friends. A new era was beginning. Humanity had not wanted war. They had not wanted power. They had only wanted to survive and to make sure no one else suffered the fate the Council had planned for them. The memorial's inscription glowed in the fading light. Admiral Park read it one more time before walking away. For those who had no one to fight for them, humanity remembers. The stars came out one by one, filling the sky with light. And somewhere among them, in a galaxy that was finally free, the future was waiting to be written.